Welcome to MacroCode. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So today we're going to proceed with the employees management system. As you can see, we have an area to capture employees. So here you actually register a new employee form. You also have the leave types where you can capture new leave types. You can also create a new leave application. And here, after creating a new leave application, you tie it to an employee. You indicate the start date, end date, annual leave type, a leave duration, and you submit. And these leave applications are actually approved, so it has a workflow for approval. Then you're able to see all the approved, it has the status. Then we have also separated with the rejected leave applications. As you can see, these are the rejected ones. Then under system security, we have the system users. So here you can register a new user within the application and you can assign the user to a role. So you can see these are some of the roles that we have within our application. And after doing that, you can also register new roles. As you can see, you can only add the role name and the system will give us the role ID and we have the role name here. Then after that, you can also do system profiles. And as we had indicated, system profiles kind of is the same as the system submodules or actions that can be done within the system. And we'll be using this to control the rights within our application. Then you also have the system audits. So these are the audit logs. Everything that we do within our application is able to be tracked and you can tell who did what at what time. So you can see here we have the user, we have the audit type, whether it is a deletion, the table that was affected, the time, and the old values. What were the values within that on that particular transaction? So you'll also be able to advance this so that we can actually restore these. Assuming we want to restore these values, we can actually restore them. So we'll be looking at that on our next series. So then we have the user roles. So we were actually selecting a role, then assign them to a particular task. So, but this was kind of hectic because you are doing one at a time. So you select, if it is a super administrator, you'll have to assign them a particular system role one at a time until you complete. So that was hectic. So what we did, we came to system user system roles. Then under system roles, we were defining, for example, that under the finance manager, you can come here and say assign rights. Then we should be able to be presented now with this kind of dashboard, whereby you can be able to see the module, where this is the dashboard, which is the module, and the submodules. So these are the submodules. Then, for example, under employees management, you can see it is only view. So if you want to have different actions here, so I'm going to change, assuming we want to have, this should be a submodule and not an action. So under leave management, you'll see we have the leave types. This is the leave type. Then we have the actions, the view, create, and delete. So these are the actions that can be performed within these leave types. Then under leave applications, someone can view and can create, and you can have maybe approve. So for example, if I want to add another action here, I'll just come to my system profiles. Then I'll open it in a new tab, then create new. Then I'm going to say approve. So this is an action that can be done within a leave applications. And I'll say maybe this is the third action. Then I can also create another one. I can say this is another action can be reject. Then I'll just come here and say the action will be under leave applications. And I say this is the fifth. So if I come to my leave applications, you see we had only view and create. So if I refresh this, we should be able to have now the view, create, approve, and reject. So what we were doing now, we have these actions per submodule. So what we wanted is, you can come to the, remember we are on a particular role. So you can come on that particular role and select the kind of rights that you want that role to do. So when you do that, then come down here and say assign rights. So that was what was being done. So what I want us to do now, when you assign that rights, I want us, assuming we come back to system roles, then we go to the driver and say assign rights. You see, we should be able to see the selected rights here, but that is not possible now. So that means when we come to our application under rights, under system user rights, so that was under profiles. So I'm going there. So then I'll stop my application. So on clicking user rights here, we were supplying the user, that is the role for that particular, the role that we are actually dealing with. Then it will be giving us the system profiles, and these are kind of these are now the system modules, submodules, and the actions. Then the role profile IDs. So I'll actually call these role rights ID. Then this one will so we need to change that on our preview, on our view model. So I'm going to change this to, so I want all the integers. I want all the integers for all the role profiles. And remember, these role profiles are actually now the roles that our application has been assigned. So this is what we are going to work with to ensure that every role that has been assigned within our application, we can be able to see within our app and ensure that that is viewed. So if you go to our view and user groups here, when this is selected, that means when we come here, when we have these checked, when you have this checked, but the checkbox is under this particular area. So if you have this checked, we should be able to tell our application. So if that is checked, then we need to tell our application that that has been selected. How are we going to do that? So to control that and be able to tell which of the actions has been selected. So I'm going to say within here. So I'll just say this is I'll say if. So I'll say if. I'll just do if. Then I say model dot role rights. You see the role rights that we had here. So the role rights that we have under users. So we are actually selecting. So when you just click, so it is under profiles, I mean. So when we just select user rights, it will get the role ID, then give us all the IDs that has been selected for that particular role. So that means all the rights that has been selected for that particular role. So on our interface now, we are going to say all rights.id if it contains, so it'll say contains, if it contains what we have here under our action. So this is our action.id. Then what we are going to say is that that particular record has been, that particular right has been selected, and we are going to check it. So I'll just do that way. Then I'll do here class. I'll say checked is equals to, so I'll just do checked. Then if else, we should tell those the rights that has not been selected and those that has been selected. So I'm going to do it here. Another thing like that. So if I do that and save, let's launch our application and be able to tell. So as we launch our application, let me open the database so that you're able to see how this works. So if you're new to this channel and you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Comment down below in case you have anything that you feel we should cover, and we'll be happy to cover. So let me just open my database as our application is also launching. So there we go. So I'll just go to my database. Then within my database, I'm going to the table. So this is the table. Then under tables, we have now where we are storing our rights. So this is the table, the role profiles. So if I open the role profiles, you'll see that I am storing these two things. The task here means the actions, and the role. So a role can have multiple tasks. So I'm going to delete this, then you should be able now to demonstrate this a bit clearer. So I'll remove that for now. So if we launch our app now, let me just log in. Sign in. Then I'm going to try to come to system security, then system roles. Then I want us to deal with the driver role. So I'll just assign a role here. Then as you can see, this is not giving us the correct representation because we don't have any roles here. So I've just deleted everything and we should not be having anything. So if I come to our controller and profiles, so the controller is a profiles controller. Then if I come here, just put that, then, so yeah, so this is actually selecting the task ID, yeah, as an int. So let's just see. So if we refresh this, the role ID here has been selected. Then if we proceed, do you have IDs here? We don't have anything. You see the task.role rights is null. So if we come to our user group, we've said that if so this should be if model, so if model dot rights dot contains this, contains the ID, then we say, yeah, you see here, we've actually missed this. This should not be checked. So let's remove that and proceed, apply the changes. So whenever we have the IDs, that is when you should be checked. So you see, this is not checked. And when you come to our database, we should be able to get that to see that we don't have any task and the role assigned to anything here. So I'm going to assign create, delete, view, create, and we can leave these two. So if I just say assign rights, we should be able to see those roles here. You see, these are the tasks, and it is for only a particular role. So if I go back to my application, I should be able to see all the rights that has been assigned. So let me just remove this breakpoint. So as you can see, when I refresh, I'm able to see that this role driver has the view, create, delete, view, create, and all that. So if I untick this, so what should happen? So what should happen? If you save, we should be able to update these rights here. But that needs to happen when, so let me just do this. So if I undo that and save, if you come to our database, you will see that this is actually creating multiple rights. You see, it has created like this one is have also this task and this task, and it is of the same role. So I want us, instead of doing that, I want us to ensure that we are not supplying multiple tasks and roles. So what I want us to do, whenever we just add user rights, I want us to purge anything that we have within our database. So I'm going to do here. So I'm going to do here roles. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to say remove. I'll just say here dot where. So I'll just say where. I'll just assign it a value dot role ID. So where we want to get all the profiles where the role ID is that. Then we say to list async. Then once we do that, so I'm going to do here variable all rights. So we'll get all the rights here. So this will give us all the rights of that particular role. So what I want us to do, I want us, even without doing anything, we purge these rights, then we reassign them. So I'm going to say here remove range, then have the rights, then I can save. So that will remove all those rights. So let's launch our application. and see what will happen. So before inserting anything, we remove, then we add. So let's just launch and see. So application is there. So as it launches, so we have now our email address, and I'm going to log in. So there we go. So our application has logged in. So what I want us to do now, let's go to system use roles, then go to driver, and I'm going to assign only one write. So let me just do that and assign view. Then if I say save, we should be able to get only one write in our database here. You see, we only have the task and the role ID. So if we go back and maybe we assign all of them, we can assign, let's say, 3. So we are assuming we should only get these 3 roles. So if I just assign and go back to our application, we should have these 3, the task, ID, and the role. So that is what should happen. So whenever we are assigning the roles to our application, we should patch the rights and reassign it afresh. So I think that is it for when assigning the rights to our application. But what we are not yet done with the controlling the rights to our application. So what happens, assuming we have assigned these rights to our app, and you can see we are able to tell now whether this person has the rights to view or do anything. So what we need to do is we need to also control this layout and also control the actions based on what we have just indicated. And that will actually form part of what we are going to do within this series. So if I just go back to our employees, when we were creating an employee, we were having the employee number, first name, last name. Then you see the country, department, and designation were actually part of, were actually text. So what I want us to do, I want us to pull this as a drop down and ensure that we are not typing them. So let's just go back to our employees table. Then here, instead of doing country string, I want us to do int, but I will have this as nullable so that you don't get issues with our data. Then I'll have this as country. So it should, these are foreign key now, pulling from country, and I'll want us to change that to country ID. Then this should be country. Then the next thing is department. I'll also want us to do department ID, and we can have these picking values from. So we'll just do public. Then here we'll say department. Then this is department. Then also on our designation. So instead of, I think what we can, just to avoid a lot of issues, let's just say country, remove this, and this is let's just retain it. We will change whenever, in case we need to change something. So I'll just remove it to ID. So this should be ID, and then this one should be department. Then this should be int. Then after doing that, this should be designation, and this is designation. So once we have this done, so this is department, and this is department ID. So the next thing is, remember, we need to do migrations. So for the employee, we have the first name, middle name, last name. We can also add gender. So I want us to add here gender. So you can actually extend these details. So if we do gender here, we'll say gender ID, and this will be from our system code detail. So I'll just do that. Then here we'll say, instead of that, we'll say here gender. So I'm going to add these columns to our application, and to do that, I'm going to first run migrations. So I'll do that. Then I'll actually do add migration. Then we say initial. This is not initial. We can say employee changes. So if we do that, Remember, on our employee table, we have some data and we don't want to remove them. So you see, these are some of the records that we have. So instead of storing departments as text and designation and even the countries, I want us to use now the countries table here to link our table, to link to our records. So I'll just run the migrations, and I think it has run. You see, we have these migrations. So what I need to do is to update our database. So I'll just do update database, enter. Then it will now update our database. If there is anything that we need to do, then we will have to do some changes. But if everything is okay, you see our migration has worked. So after doing that, remember now when you go to our employees controller, we need to have now the drop-down list for all those items that we added. So I'm going to copy some of the things under employees under leave. So that is the select. So I'm going to go back to our employees, and we now need to change everything that is we were typing should be a drop-down list. So that is the department. I'm going to change this, and I'm calling it department ID. So I'll just do that department ID, copy that as well. Designation, I'm changing that to designation ID, designation ID, then this should be designation. So I'm also changing another thing, it was the country. This should be country ID now. So I'll copy that, paste it here. Then this should be country ID. So if we do country ID, here should be country ID. Then we can say, after that, the next thing that we've added, remember we've added another column. So I'm going to add the column for gender. So I'll just add it at the top here. So I'll say gender. So this will be gender. So another thing here, we can actually change also these to represent country, and this is country ID. This should be department ID as well. And this is department ID. Then this also should be designation ID here. This is designation ID. Then for the gender, I'll just go back to the gender here. So this should be gender ID. This is gender ID, and this is gender ID. So to get this drop-down list, I'll show you what was happening under leave application. We were having the view data. So these are the things that we need to have now for our drop-down options. So we are going to copy that and have it under employees, and that should be on our create option action, where we need to specify. So for example, country ID, then you are selecting the options for countries. And the countries we want what we want to save to our database is actually the primary key of a country, which is an ID. So I'll just do that. Then what we want to display to the user is the name. The next thing is the designation ID. We are taking them from designations. What we want to save to the data to the database is the ID, but what we want to display is the name. The next thing is the department ID. Then we are getting this from departments, and also we want to save the name. So you should ensure that the names, the names are actually, you see, these are the name. For the designation also we have the name, and the country we are also saving the name. So that is what you should display here. So this ID is what will be saved, but the name is what will be displayed. So you can actually copy this and add it here on the view. So then whenever we do that, we can actually select. So remember, the model has some data now. So it'll say employee, then we do dot country ID. So this will select all the, in case there is an error, it will return the values that you had selected. So I'll just pass this so that whenever there is an error, you'll be able to see all these values selected. So here I'll say designation ID, and also here I'll say, so I'll remove this and do here department ID. So once I do that, so there's one thing we've missed, that is the gender. So the gender is a bit different. So I'm going to do here gender ID. Then I'll say select system code details. Then I'll say dot include. So I'll do that. Then I say system code. Then once I include that, I'll say dot where. I'll do that, then that dot. So I'll say dot system code dot code. So I'll say system code dot code is equals to gender. So I'll show you how this is working. But here for the system code table, we are saving the description. So that is what we are going to display here instead of name. So also the same thing, I'll copy this, come to on this post action. Then for us, whenever we get any error, for us to get the value, we need to pass the ID here. So if I do that and I say here gender ID, I should be okay. And the same case, we can do the same case when we are editing. So I'm going to paste this code to the edit view, and I'm going to paste this one for create to the edit post method. So I'm going to have it here. So once I'm done with that, I can launch my application and we are good to now see those changes. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing, like our video, comment down below. And if you feel the video is helpful, you can also consider buying us coffee, and we will really appreciate. So if we do that, I can log in. Then when we come to now employees, you see we have our data, and if we go to our employees table, we should be able to see the new columns that we added. You see these new columns, we have the country ID, department ID, designation ID, and the gender. So when you go to add new employee, we should now see that under gender, we have the male and female. Then under country, we have Kenya. Then department, we have the IT department, and designation, we have software. So let me change, instead of seeing this country ID, a department ID, and the gender ID, to have a better label, you can come to our model. Then you can actually indicate what you want to see. So instead of country ID, I can choose to say here, sorry, I'll come here, then I can say, so I'll just do square brackets, then I can say display name, then into brackets, I can give the name that I want to be displayed. I'll just put that, then I can say country name. So you can do the same for the others. So this is the name that will be displayed. So the same thing for department. I'll do that, then I can say department. So these are called data annotations or department. So I'll say department name. Then I can also do designation. So I'll do designation name, and I can also do here gender name. Then the same thing here, you can do first name. So this is how you will want your application to look like, and the namings on the UI. So I'll do that. Then here I'll say middle. So this is middle name. I can also do here last name. So here last name. Then I can do phone number. And I can also do here email address. So I'll remove this. Then we can do think that is okay. So I'll relaunch my app. Then we should be able to see, we should be able now to save the employee with the new details. So let's just wait and see. So if we launch, there we go. So I'll pass my email, then I can do that. So if I sign in, my password is wrong. So I'll say, so there we go. So we'll actually change our login screen. So I don't like it the way it appears. So if we go to system, so if you go to employees, that is employees, then I'm going to create a new employee. And I'm going to have some just weird names. Then I can do that. So you can subscribe. I've put in the last name here, subscribes. So you remember the changes that we've done, the email address, the last name, the middle name, the country name. You see how it is appearing now? We don't have the IDs, the same name that are actually on our models. So I do that, then I can say here, test@gmail.com. Then I can choose the mail, country, can put in the date here. I can put in here the address, I can put in the department, and if I click create, you see there is something that is not working. So why is it? So if you go to our create employee here, I want us to remove something. So instead of doing this, I want us to comment this. I want us to to remove that as well. I'll show you how we will be validating that. So for now, remove that. Then let's just stop our application and relaunch it. So then we are going to have our ID here. So our application is launching. So I'm going to have that, then I pass my password, then there we go. So I'm going to say here new employee. Then if I add that, and I can supply the names that we had done, then I can do that. I can choose that, the date of birth, the address, the department name, and the designation. So if I click create, it will hit our breakpoint. So if we hover on it, we should be able to see the department ID. It is actually displaying the numbers, designation, and the country ID. So if we proceed, our application should work without any issues. But you see there is something wrong. What is it? If you can see here, cannot insert the value null into the column user ID in tables employee DBO audit logs. Remember we did our audit logs, and on our save changes here, we are not passing the user who is creating this. So our application will not work until we ensure that audit logs are catered for. So I'm going to supply our user. So let me just go here and get our user details. So where was it? So let's try for the profiles. I think we have a user. Yes, so this is the user. So you're getting the logged in user. So when we are creating, we should get the logged in user here. And actually, you'll see here the created by ID, we were supplying the macro code hard-coded text. So I'm going to supply now the ID of that particular user. And here, I'm also taking this ID and supply it now to the save changes. So this will ensure that whenever we save the changes, our audit logs will be tracked. So there we go. So let's just do that and see. So application should start. there we go. So I'll say admin, then I can do login. Then if I go to employees, I can now create a new employee. I'll pass the credentials, I'll pass there, subscribe. So I'll do that. Email address, gender, country, the date of birth, address, department, and designation. So if I click create, it should now create our new staff. You see, this is the numbers. But if we add number 8, let's add number 8 so that you're able to see the employee number is that. You can do that. Last name. So if you're following this channel, consider subscribing. If you have not, please do so. Then I can do here department and that. Then if I click create, we should have our employee number 8. You see, this is the employee number 8. So when we are creating an employee, you'll be able to see that we have this gender name. Where does it come? So, and also the country comes from the countries section here. And you'll be able to see this is the only country that we have. Then for the gender, it actually comes from the system code details. So I think there was someone who was asking how this was being done. I think we missed that. So how we map this is we first categorize our options. Instead of having, for example, gender, it has male and female. So we created a gender group. So this is like kind of a system code which actually groups the details. Then once you create that, you come to system code details. You create a new group. You create a system code detail. These are kind of options. Then you tie it to the group and you provide the options. So for each of these system code details, you can have multiple options. You see, for example, this tied to a particular group. Then you'll just be reusing and referencing within the application. So that is it for today. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. I'm going to leave it there, then see you in our next video. Take care. Bye.